I also think for the Republican Party, I think this is important. Hispanics are trending Republican, right? And I think why is that happening in part? Because Democrats don't know how to speak to them, right? They either call them Latinx.
You're not Latinx? Come on, what are you doing?
Which does not resonate when you go macro, right? And then when you go nuanced, you call them a San Antonio taco, right? So they don't get the macro branding, they don't get the nuance branding, and I think this is an awesome opportunity for Republicans to say, hey, we respect you. We know you want to be Americans. We know you're law-abiding. We know that you believe in family, and you want to, you believe in the family unit as a means of trying to get people to be successful, and education. These are all of the things that Republicans always talk about.
How at odds do you feel like you are with the current administration?
Well, I think we're at odds on a lot of issues. Look, we're at odds on government spending, right? They've created this inflation. Now in California, they're giving $1,000 in anti-inflation, which is going to create more inflation. So they've created inflation.
They always raise the taxes and then they give you your money back and you're supposed to thank them for it.
Exactly.
Isn't that something?
And by the way, it just creates inflation, right? Right. So you've got more inflation. So you've got dysfunctional foreign policy. Disastrous retreat in Afghanistan, conventional war in Ukraine, which obviously this administration wasn't able to avoid. You've got this oil situation in the entire world, right, where you have oil prices that are dependent on foreign producers, the dependency of Europe on Russia. You've got South America going socialist more and more, and the U.S. having no coherent policy on that. We have systematically ignored Cuba's role as the head of the snake in exporting its only commodity, which is communism, and doing it very effectively because they were trained by the Russians in the 1970s. And there's supply chain issues. I mean, they have really not confronted successfully, in my opinion, any of the macro issues that are generational in nature that are going to set up this country for success.
Where are you at on the immigration stuff generally? Obviously, we had this big thing with the Martha's Vineyard.
Sure.
That whole thing. I don't even really know actually how the city falls on when people just show up here and all that stuff.
Yeah, look, I mean, we're a city of immigrants, right? Mostly legal immigrants, frankly, because Cubans had a favorable immigration policy called wet foot, dry foot, and what preceded it. So you were able to get asylum essentially automatically. I just don't think we're having a very coherent conversation about it, on both sides, right? I think when you look at a city like Miami, we have 1.4% unemployment. That's awesome until you want to start a small business, and then you can't find employees. Right. So the beauty of America versus China, for example, is we both have declining birth rates, and the difference is nobody wants to go to China. Everybody wants to come here. So I think that's an opportunity if we have a conversation that benefits the U.S., right, as opposed to just a border conversation, right? And I think that's where I hope the future of this conversation goes, because this is an unresolved issue that is not. It reminds me of World War I trench warfare. Everybody's sort of in their side, just going to poke up, they get back in, and then in a year they maybe move 4 inches, right? So there's just no coherent discussion on it.
So what do we do in Miami? Like, what's the policy if somehow illegals get here? I'm not even sure where the Martha's Vineyard one started or how they ended up roughly here. But what is the city's policy on it?
Well, we're not ICE. Right. So we don't have a formal role. So that's an ICE issue, right? The federal government, Immigration Customs Enforcement issue as to whether or not how they detain people and what they do with them once they're detained. So we don't have a role in that. We don't get in their way either. We sort of let them do their job and support them if and when necessary. But again, part of what makes us special is our diversity, right? And our inclusion in terms of a variety of different people that come from a variety of different backgrounds. And it's what makes us who we are. So I also think for the Republican Party, I think this is important. Hispanics are trending Republican, right? And I think why is that happening in part? Because Democrats don't know how to speak to them. Right, they either call them Latinx.
You're not Latinx. Come on, what are you doing?
Which does not resonate when you go macro, right? And then when you go nuanced, you call them a San Antonio taco, right? So they don't get the macro branding, they don't get the nuance branding, and I think this is an awesome opportunity for Republicans to say, hey, we respect you. We know you want to be Americans. We know you're law-abiding. We know that you believe in family, and you want to, you believe in the family unit as a means of trying to get people to be successful, and education. These are all of the things that Republicans always talk about, right? So there's a great opportunity there to lean into that and not be worried that if, something happens on the immigration front, it's going to be damaging to Republicans. It actually might be very beneficial.
You mean you're telling me that Latinos, just like everyone else, care about more than one issue?
They do.
Isn't that wild?
And they care about our country.
Very bizarre. Let me ask you one that I saw.
By the way, look what's happening in the southern Texas border in congressional races.
No, it's
Hispanic
incredible.
Republican women that are going to hopefully sweep 3 congressional races, including one that I think they hadn't held for 150 years or something.
Mayra Flores. And
yeah.
she's the one that then the New York Times ran the article, what was it, the Latino face of the new right or something, or the alt-right?
There you go.
Something insane. Let me ask you one about that I saw some of my guys giving you some crap for, which is some of the gun buyback stuff and this thing. So I saw my more conservative side going, he's coming for guns, he's a Democrat, something like that. So I allow you to clean it up however you see.
Well, first of all, I think
people that like you generally that live in this city.
No, and I think I'll tell you this. Let's see how I put this sort of a little bit delicately, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of jockeying going on right now, and there's a lot of surrogates that are doing a lot of things to try to build people up and tear people down, kill them in the crib type of thing. There's a lot of that happening with me as my profile gets bigger, as I get talked about in more prominent circles. It's more like, hey, let's try to brand him as a certain thing, right? And there's a lot of that happening with me. But gun buyback is something that the city's been doing forever, right? And it's not about being pro-gun or anti-gun. I'm fervently pro-Second Amendment. I'm a gun owner and incredibly pro-police. I think really it's more for, what happens oftentimes is like a widow, right, whose husband passes and the husband was an avid gun collector and they have 20, 30 guns at home and they're afraid that if somebody breaks in, they're going to steal the guns and kill them or hurt somebody else. So they just don't feel safe with the guns at home and they prefer to sell it. These oftentimes are elderly people who are living on fixed income, right? And they get, we have like, coupons that we give them I forgot what they're called. Sort of a gift cards that we give them, right? And so we'll give them gift cards to Publix or gift cards to Target or whatever, and they'd rather have $1,500 in gift cards to Target than 20 guns that they don't know what they're doing with, right, in their own home. So that's the prototypical scenario. So it's not like we want to take guns off the street in that sense, or we want people not to. It's completely voluntary, right? So people want to do it, they do it. If they don't want to do it, they don't have to do it.
Do we even have a gun problem? I mean, are there shootings here really? No.
So that's the other thing is that in this conversation about gun violence, people, it's such a myopic conversation, right? We don't talk about the fact that in Miami, for example, we were ranked the happiest city in America, the healthiest city in America, with 1.4% unemployment and increasing funding for police departments. So it turns out if you have more police officers, happy people, healthy people, and people that are working, guess what? They're not killing other people, right? So that's the formula for success.
The happiness may come from not being killed.
And by the way, that has nothing to do with whether they own a gun or don't own a gun. That has to do with their frame of mind. That has to do with what they are in life. And I've often said, look, if somebody wants to hurt somebody, there are unfortunately a multitude of ways that can happen. And so we've got to look at the root cause of why people feel compelled to do X and where we're missing. And I think that gets lost in the discussion a lot.
If you're looking for more honest and thoughtful conversations about politics instead of nonstop yelling, check out our politics playlist. And if you want to watch full interviews on a variety of topics, watch our full episode playlist all right over here. And to get notified of all future videos, be sure to subscribe and click the notification bell.